so everybody can kind of slowly.
We're back.
We're back. Restart your videos, but also you don't have to, of course, still optional.
I'm so glad to see all of you out there.
It's really incredible. Let me go ahead and take a picture of that right now so that, I mean, I don't know if we'll, for us, because the rest of this apartment is a fun place, but it is really wonderful. We're very grateful that you guys have also taken the time and space to share your faces with us. I know in Zoom meetings, especially large and stranger-filled Zoom meetings, it's a little bit stressful for a lot of people, but Eli and I have come very close, and I'm excited to see Eli's virtual family.
Yeah, and likewise.
As well, right?
And it really is a wonderful exchange of energy when you're doing any sort of performance, to actually be able to see and feel from your audience. So
yes.
thank you for insisting, Niyati.
Yes, I insist. I did insist. It was I'm glad you all also came and supported me in my insistence. Okay, so a quick walkthrough for how we're gonna kind of present this beautiful piece. We have a camera here, which you may have seen this whole time, that Eli perfectly set up. And we both have excerpts of our work that we will have chosen to share with you guys. And then we'll walk through the many layers of it. And we'll talk about our collaboration and Eli's production of this incredible object and piece. It is so, I gush over it. I lose words over it. And so to start, I'll go ahead and read Eli's bio. She'll read my bio, and then we'll start our little presentations of.
Then you'll know who we are.
Then you'll know who we are if you didn't already. Yes. Okay. So very basic. I have so much more to say about Eli, and trust that it's coming. But this is just a very, Eli's bio. Eli Backer, YMDHM is how that's pronounced.
The name of my studio.
Yes.
It's a very long, incomprehensible block of text.
Time. Okay. Just after her birth, Eli Backer moved to Bainbridge Island, located 8.6 miles west of Seattle, Washington. Her childhood was in the context of this small town, geographically isolated with its subculture, freedoms, and restrictions. 19 years later, she attended Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, for computer engineering and a minor in music theory. While there, working at an internship making very large fountains, she met a RISD student who convinced her to merge art with technical knowledge and apply to graduate school. In 2019, she graduated from RISD's Glass Department, a highly conceptual, process-driven group of fine artists, and is currently living and making work in a cabin in rural Pennsylvania.
That I am.
That she is.
Thank you.
And then, I don't know, I guess. You want to read mine?
Yes.
She has the card of my bio on it.
And Niyati is a writer based in New York City. Her chapbook, Woman as Threat, is out from Rafter Press last 2 Decembers ago, in December 2018. And the runners of Rafter Press are here with us tonight.
Yes,
Thank you.
They're in there.
As well as Ojalá, published by Papelota Negra in July 2018, was a collaboration with illustrator Alejandra Marroquin and translated by Patricia Trigueros, who is also with us tonight and read. Thank you again, Patty.
And has translated so much. She also translated 3 of these cards for Alaraca to share with the Spanish-speaking world, and it's incredible.
Thank you. Niyati earned her MFA in fiction from Sarah Lawrence College, as you know from context and some of her friends, and is hard at work. I can attest, on her second novel, and it is coming together beautifully. I feel very honored to have glimpsed into it because it is a feat. And Delta, this project is her first art book.
Yes, it is. So inside Delta, there are 25 cards. They're double-sided, back and forth. Well, this is not the view you'll be getting. You'll be getting a main view, don't worry. And there's also 4 addenda. One is a very basic numbering system,
Let's switch over.
Should we? Well,
Yeah.
I'll read this one and then we'll switch over.
Okay.
But yeah, so the addenda we'll get to, but one of them, because this is a time capsule, I guess I should just start by saying, like, as we collaborated, we can start with the story of that. Actually, I had a different plan originally, but I think we're going to go off script and kind of start with the story of where this came from.
Sure.
And we had met at the Center for Book Arts. I was saving this for later. I already told you I was saving it for later, but I'm just going to say it now. I met Eli Backer at the Center for Book Arts. There was about 9 or 10 of us around a table. And Eli was so very quiet and directed.
Like I am now.
Like she is now. And it's incredible because this is a very annoying thing to say, but as millennials, there's a lot of distractions and a lot of attention moving, and Eli was just so focused and direct at anything she was working on and doing, and I was just so taken by it, and I was like, that is a skill I haven't seen, and 2, want. And then the more I got to learn about her, I learned that we were both, she came from computer engineering. I was a pre-med. I was working in neuroscience for a while. And we had just very similar kinds of backgrounds and switches to the arts, and I was taken aback, and I remember we were printing all of those things and just working through it. And
it was a letterpress workshop.
It was a letterpress workshop.
So, a week of hand setting lead type to produce a text that's about this big.
Yeah, it was incredible. And so ever since then, I had learned that she was moving to Pennsylvania, which is very close to New York. And I was like, I'll come visit you. And I didn't get a chance to. COVID moved it a bunch of times, from spring to summer to fall. And then it was like, we got to do this. And so I came and we were talking. Mid-November. Yeah. It was November 16th, I think, to the 19th. So
just after the inauguration or the election results had finally come through after that week.
And it was like a period of change. Like I came on Monday, I think they had announced the confirmation, or enough people had announced the confirmation that we were all like, okay, we're going to have a new president if the old one gives up his power like that.
Which he now has.
But, and it was mid-November, and we're like, we need to make something. We wanted to make something.
Yeah. Well, he started by printing and binding 6 copies of your book as a first draft, your test print, to really see it, and hold it.
It was incredible. She has so many machines that she fixes herself. And I cannot speak you off more about the genius that is involved with all of these things. I've shared a couple of pictures on Instagram of her studio and things like that. But yeah, we started talking about how we wanted to collaborate, about life and change and how much has happened in the last 4 years, the last 1 year, the last, however many months. And we were also people that look forward. And I was looking forward. And I think my personal biggest tension at the time was, will Trump give up his power? And so I was like, okay, this is a 2-month period in which a lot can change, and I want to commemorate it. I personally write best under high pressure systems, which is an anomaly sometimes, but also very effective in the sense that a lot of people get a lot of anxiety, and I need that sort of anxiety, and my body doesn't appreciate that, but my brain is loving it right now. And so in that sense, it all formed step by step. I think this wasn't a time capsule in November, which is what I'm trying to say. It was just a response to the times. And then January 6th happened. And Eli wrote this kind of response, which is one of the addenda in here. And we needed to add it to this, what we had already kind of been working on and produced. And then I had always intended to add a letter from like the night before the inauguration, because I think, I don't know if anybody has kept memories of January 19th. It's almost as though when things get better, we forget how bad it was, but that's a good thing.
Right.
But then when things get worse, we forget how good it was, which was a bad thing, kind of. Sometimes it's a mix. So the second addenda, back to the original scripted discussion, I'm going to read my notes from the night before, which is one of the pieces inside Delta. And it was a very, it was a sort of, on January 6th, I read Eli sent me her thing, and we were like, this needs to be in it. And it was almost a manifesto of why this is worth, like, all of the work we put into it, and who Eli is. And she'll go into it more. I'm going to stop colonizing that kind of space. But yeah, and I had always intended to write something the night before, which I didn't know what that would be. And then once January 6th passed, the 7th passed, every Wednesday of January, I don't know if people follow the memes. Thank you to the Thoughtocrats for keeping me updated with that. Like, January has just been such a long month. And the 19th, I sat down knowing that I would write about Delta, that this would be in Delta. So it's a little bit different from the January 6th night letter. And this is a good way to kind of understand what the project is for me. So I'm going to read this verbatim. And this is notes from the night before. I wrote it the night before in one sitting. I may have changed like one or two details in the sense that my brain went very quickly, and I wrote add, and then I added one thing, and then the rest of it was pretty much from that night, 99% of it. Okay. So notes from the night before, 1/19/2021. Sitting at my desk, all I see are the roots of my succulents overgrown and the roots of my orchids underwater, plus 2 dark circles beneath the eyes of a glass woman that I think looks like me. And so, to the point, this window. What is Delta and why? Over the last 6 years, I've come to consolidate an idea that the artist's job is to ingest existence, digest it, and recreate it for others to more easily or newly ingest. And anyone that does this or acts with this intention is an artist, which is to say that all art is tribute and is mirror and is revelation. And our world doesn't need more separation. Delta is, at its core, a collaboration. Eli and I met during the Fine Press seminar taught by Barbara Henry at the Center for Book Arts in the summer of 2019, and I went to visit her just after the Biden-Harris election. We talked about co-creation for some time, and Delta exists where our work aligns, on opposite sides of the same coin, the same card, among the buoys and borders and burdens where the urban meets the rural, the intimate meets the societal, the smashing of 2 grand and great rivers to create one beautiful, beautiful thing. This Delta, our Delta, this piece, which makes the why personal for us both. Why, niyati, is this so important to you? Because I'm forgetting. Dear friends, everything is happening so fast that I'm forgetting. Forgetting the news, forgetting normalcy, forgetting my place. I have no platitudes, no salves. The world is the world, and we're just paying more attention. All I have are these thoughts, these curated ruminations, and the one request that you come closer, sit with me, and share the memories of this space, of the last 2 months, the last year, the last 4 years of my life. Because you and I, dear reader, we live through the masks and the distance and the hyper-contagious variant, hopefully, through the bigoted riots and the God-blessed protests and all the anger around the globe, through the genocides and the mass incarcerations and the deaths of those they'll never let us see, the children separated, the children orphaned, the children killed, through the pretend overthrowing of dictatorships and the starting of wars and the never-ending of wars and the never-ending walk of refugees, through governments choosing power, money over people, through the exacerbation of every crisis we've battled for over 30 years. And to this stage, we bring ourselves, and we bring the trauma, grief, pain that human time throws our way, which is to say, this we, you and I, the circle of us, we are the products of our survivals. We lived and we live, and that life deserves commemoration. And no matter how timeless or arcane these thoughts prove to be, I hope they stand still, as tribute, as mirror, as flame. So this little piece, thank you, thanks. This little piece is in here. And with that, niyati's personal take on what is Delta and why, I would like to ask you, Eli, what is Delta and why?
Yeah, I think it's probably worth reading what I wrote.
Yes.
On the night of the 6th, which is really the 7th at 3-something in the morning, as many people who know me would attest to. And then we'll get into Delta properly. And, just as I take this piece out of the box and reflect on it, I'm so grateful for the collaboration that we have had, because all of my worries and concerns and uncertainties that exist, just like in the first few sentences of this letter, as soon as they made their way to Niyati, she said, don't worry about it. That's my side of things, and I need you to be you, and really gave me space to make the work I make best. And I think I gave her that space as well.
She did.
I'm
really
tremendously grateful. January 7th, 2021 at 3:15 in the morning. I don't know how to be political with my work, and that is sometimes a cause for concern, especially when it's impressed upon me that if I'm not burning systems down, I'm not doing enough. First, almost as an aside, I think democracy is a good thing, and that it requires improvement, and that it is maintained by many, many thoughtful and caring people who have the best interests of people at heart. This comes from my parents, both who have been lawyers at some point in their careers, and constantly reminded me that good people are preserving freedom and equality, even as the president or special interests try and tear it away. I make work that is often small or intimate. I hope that in these works, people can find space for themselves and their pains and triumphs and feel seen. If they don't, but they see mine, I hope it's still a connection, a meaningful connection, a moment of connection. How can we exist, know, and understand our fellows if we don't ever connect with them as real and complicated individuals? I think that technology is a good and wonderful thing, and I also think that tech companies are immoral and malicious in their practices. Furthermore, I think technology is designed to be monolithic and impenetrable, and that only further enslaves us to these gatekeepers who are of our supposed future. This is why there are so many machines in my practice, as Niyati has alluded to, because I aim to expose the simple, stepwise construction of these monoliths, and because machines speak to me. Knowledge is power, and it is our right, and I aim to share, expose, and in doing so, critique big tech. Finally, I believe in transcendent beauty, not as an absolute, but as something each defines for herself. There are songs that make me shiver, buildings that make me cry, photos and films that make my jaw drop. I think it's important that we feel these things, and that there is a place for feeling's sake, though not at the expense of morals or character. I suppose this unknowingly became an expose on my divided soul of artist, engineer, and composer. And I hope one day I don't feel guilty for the space my work takes up in our increasingly polarized and instant world. Thanks a lot, Big Tech.
I remember getting that, and yeah, our conversation, which Eli alluded to about, you know, we both comforted each other because everything that I write is highly societal oriented. That's the place it starts and ends. And Eli is very intimate with all of her work, and we both had respite in that area, in the sense that I was like, Eli, please don't revise any of your intimacy, because I don't have any intimacy or respite, or like there's no safe space for anybody in my work. It's all up against you know, a lot of things, and so in that sense I am super grateful for us both talking through it. And yeah, I'm gonna switch to this screen now for us, so that Eli can go ahead and present the actual physical delta that we're so excited to present. It's wonderful. I hope the lighting is
Come on,
okay.
buddy. There we go. Cool. Yeah, we've had tremendous shifts in lighting. How are we looking? A little blown out, but it's black on white, so we'll get there. I can't wait to go into.
Sorry. Feel free to switch to gallery view if you aren't already, or if you don't know about that. It'll make it much larger. We're just seeing all of you guys. Okay. This is Delta. A little lid. Do you
keep track of it?
Would it be too distracting for me to ask
I think if you click the speaker view on the upper right hand corner, if you go to view and you click speaker, then you can see their screen a little bit more clearly.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, let's get into that once we walk through the work a little more. And I think while I read from this last card, why don't you place the images out on the table? Thank you. There you go. Start over there. Yeah, no, just go for it. So for me, Delta consists of mostly photos, 17 images, and an essay that takes up 4 of my cards. And I'll be reading the last page of that essay. Just over 4 years ago, I picked up a film camera again and started making pictures. It became a driving force in my practice, a reason to go into studio and work, material for future installations, and a tacit agreement to, in an instant, hold on and let go. 4 years ago, I was finally defining what photography meant to me and diving in headlong. But that practice was one of the things I lost sight of as life became more taxing. Why document something when it hurts? And why hold on to the trapped feeling of living at the bottom of a valley? These photos are the first I've taken and developed in over a year. They are photos of someone finding her feet again, surrounded by friendships, some of which barely existed 4 years ago. Friends who hold my heart for a while, borrow it, mend it, and return it to me better. And they are photos of a woman coming full circle, again rebuilding, redefining, and returning to this practice that continues to mean so much. And so, as I sort of allude to in that last chunk of text, this was the process of taking photos in a way that just doesn't interrupt the flow of my life. Was something I developed about 4 years ago when I first came to grad school. And some of the people in these pictures were there with me when I was figuring this out. Ray in particular has tolerated so many inopportune shots of her wandering through the world. And so to let this go as life has gotten harder over the past years, and then to come back to it among friends, was really, really special to realize. Like, Niyati came and visited in November. I went and followed her here and stayed with her for 4 days after her time with me. And I shot 2 rolls of film. I didn't entirely know why. I didn't know when I would develop them. And it was only on my drive home that I realized, oh, this is what I'm going to put into Delta. And this is the work that needs to exist, because it's this sort of perfect encapsulation of the past 4 years, as well as this in-between time.
That was so wonderful. I'm just looking at this in a moment. I have been switching the camera back and forth just because I want you to see Eli speak as well and look at all of this. Quick apologies on the lighting. The sun has set in
Very
this
much
period of
so.
change. And so I'm hoping that these are visible to you all. And the photography is incredible. Like, so I guess we should also mention, not that all politics is superficial, but in the event that we create a piece of art, we want to be as you know, artistic as possible. Like, we're not trying to give you an entirely political piece. So in that sense, the details of January 2021, like Inauguration Day and Election Day, and then the number 46 and those items, the politics of it is very superficial. And the actual cards themselves, these 25 cards that Eli has made and that I have made, they're all apolitical for the most part. And it was so wonderful for me to watch Eli go through this whole process of selecting. So there's actually, did you mention this, that there were actually like 80 whole photos and you had to pick?
Yeah.
These are all still in chronological order.
Yeah, so that's always been very important to me. I really push back against the conventions of photography as documentation, or as like making a point that the photographer sees in the world, and the process of cropping and editing. I just completely avoid for the most part. And when Niyati visited, I showed her some of my work. This series of 21 photo books, each corresponding to a roll of film I shot on a research trip to Death Valley. So this process of cutting it down from 2 rolls, 36, 37, 38 exposures each, down to 17 images was a challenge, but one that I think was totally apt for this project.
Yeah, I was aghast. I had seen all the pictures and I was like, I don't know how you do what you do. But that is also to say, this isn't, for anybody that's approaching in this, it's not, Eli didn't know exactly which picture to take at which second of time. I'm always fascinated by hearing artists like that, because as an amateur / as somebody that didn't grow up very deep in the arts, like I had always I didn't know how to approach art, to be honest. And I think that's why this conversation is very exciting to me to have with each other, and to learn as an unrooted person, that this is where all the work comes from. This is where it goes, and what it looks like in the end is phenomenal to watch that process. I have so many questions about the production of things, which we will go into in a moment. Right after I present mine, there's a lot to say.
I think photography is inherently a precious medium.
Yeah.
And shooting film is especially precious these days because it's not simply the way that we produce photos, but it is a choice to work with this material.
Yeah.
And so that balance of preciousness with being loose enough to just shoot enough images to really give you a feeling. And then on top of all of that, to not let it get in the way of my own experience.
Yeah.
Has been a process of the past 4 years, I think.
Yeah. Oh, so much to learn. Oh my gosh. I clearly have trouble moving on. Okay, so we're gonna get back to switching over to my content before we talk about how we actually came and made these. So as you can see, I may, for the sake of time, just kind of squish them.
Oh, no, I'll pick them up.
Okay. So
no trouble.
Just so that I can keep going.
I got it.
On the other side of Eli's, you'll notice, so the reason why we're not just flipping them over is because one, there are 25 cards and I worry about
a lot
your
of work.
and so a very quick thing to show you guys is another one of the addendums is this layout. Both of our work will be coming, it's in this box in a chronological, in a chronological hierarchy, which is to say there's 25 cards in an order that Eli is putting back together, 1 through 25. And then her work follows chronologically, and mine is a little bit more of a puzzle. There's a background image that we'll also talk about in the production that comes together as a puzzle, and let's see if I can lift it. So it's a little key for it.
I can. Oh, no, I can't focus.
It's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. And I have, in the same vein, back to Eli's quick January 6th letter. She had, we were talking about it, and I was saying, like, don't worry, I have already dealt with the situational aspect of it. So Eli's is she's presented her side, and mine has more to do with trauma than with grief, and a sort of reckoning over the last 4 years of coming to terms with a specific type of trauma that I will not be sharing with all of you, simply because I'm a very personal person. But I had written on the 5th, I had written out through what I wanted to put in Delta and how I wanted to address it and the questions related to it. I probably should have gotten the actual letter. So Eli called me and was worried. She's like, is this, the basic situation that a lot of artists had on the 7th and subsequent days was, what are we really doing with our time? Like, how is this worth it? Like, very, very basic. Is this relevant is a big question that comes up with artists, because as art, we want all of our art to be relevant, and it is usually almost always relevant if it is art. And so I had already written these lines that were related to dealing with trauma, and they fit quite well with the situation. And that it's partially luck where I was able to be like, Eli, look, I wrote this yesterday. I took a picture of it because I've been documenting Delta uncannily. In that way, Delta is a gift too, because nobody really knows what will happen until after it happens. And so creating a sort of time capsule, I highly recommend to everybody, especially in times like these where everything is changing very quickly, is that we get to see, like, when did we actually know how to deal with these things? Have we known how to deal with life before life happened, etc. And so these 3 cards that I'll be reading are excerpts from my work, which is in 3 parts. There is a contents, which kind of goes through all of it, and it says, in the giant pile of cards that and trying to keep, I'll just bring it up here. So there's 3 parts to mine. Music, prayer, the essay, and pebbles, or life in P's and Q's. And there's a background image, which I'll show you guys, comes together. And so this is what I wrote for the kind of polemic question part of the essay. So it says, after trauma, as with grief, life remains as reckoning. How do we move on? Question. Quote, how do we make do? These are questions that fear forces us to answer. But before every soldered change, there is revelation. And the revelation asks this: what version of new won't constrain us? Through what pain will that new bring us joy? Bring us contentment? Bring us at least safety? At least one ploy? Do you see, dear reader, before self-love comes self-war, and we've been at war since memory was born. And then other cards kind of go through a very general, very almost societal dealing of grief and those types of things. I'll show you a very quick layout and some types of cards from that side. These are I wonder if it'll show, it should show, it's very visible here. Okay, so this is a contents card. Contrast is a little hard, but I think it should be fine.
Yeah.
And then they all kind of come together in a way where they make a very large, no, because it's going to keep going that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just doing this one line.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so I'll turn it a little bit, but as you can see from a little bit farther away, it all, and these aren't, so this isn't card 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is card 2, 6, 4, and so on. So it's a puzzle, it's interactive. But also when you do lay it all out, and again, there's a very simple, if you're not trying to match pictures and you want to read it a different way, we have provided the actual answer key. This doesn't have to be a math problem. And
this is, I think, one of the things that I love so much about your work, both here and in Women as Threat, is that you get such incredible mileage out of each word.
Oh,
and the fact that this can be read as it comes to you, like as it comes out of the box, and in this completely other form is endlessly impressive to me.
And that's also part of the reason why I'm so grateful for you. I'm going to switch back so you guys can see our faces gushing at each other. It's entertainment evening, Saturday night. But like, I feel so lucky and blessed to have not only met you, but also been able to communicate with somebody like you to create something like this, because if anybody, all the people that are here from Sarah Lawrence and that have experienced my art, writing is a very linear process. And of course with, my novels and stuff like that, that's the form, and I understand that and I meet it, but everything else, I had always struggled with. Everybody would love my words, and they would be like, in prose, it would be like, oh, this, I definitely understand it as a poem. And then poets would also be like, oh, this could pass as prose, but it's also poetry kind of thing. It was almost a little bit homeless in that sense, because the physical state of my words was never, it didn't match. It wasn't integral to the very linear paper form. And then I went to the Center for Book Art, so I learned that there were other ways of recording books and stuff like that. But a lot of it, and this is my amateur take, please don't be like, oh, Nancy is so judgy. A lot of it was similarly linear. There were accordion books, there were books that you flip, etc. And so working with Eli, and this is a perfect segue into production too, it was a constant back and forth over the course of all the way up until I finished the final draft of this, and I was like, print this January 13th, I think, was the way that I was like, okay, it's ready. All 25 cards are ready. But throughout that process, I was like, Eli, I have this idea for it to be read this multiple ways. And the way to match it up is via this background image. Like, is it possible to even do this one? It was a whole all
Right. We started with, is it possible to make a triangular book?
Yes, we started with is it possible to create a triangle book? Like, can we 3D print it? Like, it was such a wonderful journey. And I think that having Eli as my partner and I do attribute this to our background as not having intended to be artists from birth, or for me, it was the age of 24, 25, I think.
Yeah.
That I switched to writing. I very viscerally wanted to be a geriatric psychiatrist, for anybody that doesn't know that. But we have plenty of those in the family, so that's fine. And someone very important to me, Genevieve, had told me that, all of those spots will be filled, but nobody will write what you wrote. And then I went and I tried to write so much, and one of them made sense and everything else didn't until this. And so, yeah, in that sense, I'm quite grateful. We have a lot of production things. I'm going to switch back because I want to show you a couple more cards.
Sorry to interrupt, Niyati, but I have a question that came through. Should we reserve that till the end for the Q&A, or?
Is it? I guess, yeah, we could just address it now. That's fine.
Okay, yeah. Are we gonna head into Q&A shortly, or
yes, I think it's 6:41. Sorry. Apologies I told you guys this would end by 6:30 and it's 6:40.
Oh.
We're almost done. We'll go through the production super quickly and then revert back to questions. Not super quickly, but effectively. I will revert back to questions very soon. But do start compiling questions in the chat. Or message Rupa directly with a question. We're very excited and happy to answer. And then also, anybody is free to hop off or hop on later. So I wanted to show you 3 things. One is this. After January 6th, I did decide that there has to be some sort of science, like some sort of calculated understanding of this is what happened in the news / this is what has happened in the world. And so what I did was I found the Carnegie Endowment Institute for Peace has a protest tracker. Given that 2020 has been an insane kind of year, especially for protests. These are all of the protests listed in the entire world that have been above 5,000 people, and the ones in bold are above 100,000 people have showed up within the last year to protest all of these types of things. So these, this is a little commemorative card that I have included that is integrated into the text and points to it. And so that's there. That's something that took me a very long time and is, I hope it does everyone justice. There are some of my drawings in there. That Eli, sorry, I keep looking at Eli, that Eli thermographically printed, which means that there is still a river background in the back, and then you can touch them. You can feel it.
They're raised.
They're raised.
It's a process that was predominantly used as an alternative to embossing, and was cheaper at the time.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful.
And last but not least is this flyleaf paper. So before, after every title page in regular books that you see, you'll see a blank page or something, or the title page and then the title page again. And then at the end of the book, you'll see a blank page before acknowledgements and back matter and stuff. And so we added these flyleafs, and we were talking to Eli. I was like, I want to add a flyleaf. I don't know. And Eli had the secret this whole time that she wanted to do this because I was trying to print on it, all this annoying stuff. And this paper is paper that Eli made in Japan, and I'm going to let her talk about it. It's handmade paper by Eli. And there are 2 pieces in each box. So it's so juicy to touch. I just want to fondle it all night. Okay.
So this is another place in which this project comes full circle once again, and just sort of ever increasing circles. 4 years ago, during this last in-between time when Trump had been elected but not yet inaugurated, I was traveling to Japan with RISD, with two professors, Daniel from printmaking and Elena from history, on their class about, it was called Paper, Temples, and Prints. And so on Inauguration Day, I was still in Japan, and I left the US under Obama and came back under Trump. And this paper was made from as much beginning as I could see. We worked with this incredible paper factory, the Awagami Paper Factory, and they had grown mulberry that we harvested. So we spent a day cutting it down, a day steaming it, a day stripping the bark, and then finally making this paper. I made 111 sheets, and it slowly continues to make its way into my work. And I'm just so glad that those thoughts of being in Japan, which holds so many parallels to where I grew up. Bainbridge Island was settled by many Japanese immigrants, and has a horrible history with the Japanese internment. And this is all like stuff that was a big part of my growing up and schooling. And so to have all of those realizations at the same time as this change in our country, and then to have that match up again with reflecting on it 4 years later, and sometimes being distinctly reminded of Japan. In fact, the last card is a shot out of the window of the river that I cross to go into town. And that river reminds me, every time I cross it, I get this visceral feeling of crossing the river in this little minibus that we would all pile into to go to the paper factory every day. So to be able to find a home for that, which has been sitting with me for 4 years now, is really, really special.
It was the most delightful surprise. There's every little layer of this, like the papers of the addenda, the papers, like all the inks, it's been such a wonderful process to have Eli as my partner, because as you can tell, this is how she speaks. This isn't her presentation voice. This is how Eli speaks. She teaches, she like explains everything, and it's so incredible. And I'm so grateful to have spent all of this time like learning and doing all of these things with you. For the sake of time, we're gonna go. I have so many questions. I want you to explain how you made the box as well.
Oh yeah.
So I guess we could bring it out.
Sure.
I'm trying to see how.
Yeah, why don't you switch the video again, and we can.
Last video, and then we'll head over to Q&A. Thanks. Thank you all for sticking around.
There we are. So I'll just walk through the whole box. It's held in place with this stainless steel pin, which I machined.
It's very weighted.
Yeah, it's.
I'm gonna enter the layman commentary.
Yeah,
it's very weighted, and you can.
It's solid.
It's solid.
And then the lid and the box are 3D printed. So this is the 9th iteration of designs that I sent to niyati, increasing perfection each time. And this is sort of as standard 3D printing as you will get for those of you that know 3D printing. It's a normal sort of, layer height. And the way a 3D printer works is you have basically a hot glue gun that's tracing out layer by layer, and it slowly gets built up. And so this is very conventional in its print method, where the layers are very thin. And then the rest of the box is printed in this way, with a very big nozzle and 1 millimeter.
It's kind of hard to see.
Yeah, okay.
There are Instagram pictures of the shine and
light,
stuff.
and then
yeah,
you click on the button, instant autofocus. Is that getting us? Nope, it's very hard.
It's hard to see, but
We have good photos.
we have great photos. We will share those.
So printed in a totally unconventional way, almost like you would do ceramic 3D printing, but with plastic. And then we were totally lucky to find this filament that we used by a company out on the West Coast called Protopasta. And it's US made, which is uncommon in the 3D printing world. And then also matte black. It's sort of this satin, which you almost never see.
Yeah, it's truly wonderful. We had talked to them. We tested this one and one other one, and this one was so incredible. And we talked to them, and essentially what they do with their filaments, because I went on a deep dive, a learning dive, was they take a bunch of plastic bits. That's how all filaments are made, and then they mix it with plant fibers in this one. This one uses plant fibers.
And that's what gives it its matte appearance and also some extra strength.
So that is wonderful.
And so then the cards are all printed in two colors, black and blue on my side, and the black and sort of smoky teal on Niyati's side, all printed on a Riso, which is a sort of cross between a mimeograph and a Xerox machine, or a cross between an offset printer and a screen printing and a copier. And anyone who knows any of those machines intimately will, of course, know that I'm wrong, but it gets us near enough.
It gets us near enough. I think a very layman, I think you explained it once to me as the silk screen printing. So if anybody knows about that, it's like you said the master roll creates a plate and then
creates a mask.
A mask, and then it just goes.
Ink is forced through that mask.
Yeah. And it's incredible.
The thing that it really adds to these is that it's blue is truly blue. The teal is truly teal because that is the color of the ink. And so then when you lay down that layer of color, it's all there. It's not a halftone pattern of cyan, magenta, and black and yellow. It's really that color, and it just has this tactility and
you just want to touch it.
It's magic.
And the cards are
the card stock that we're using is 90-pound 100% cotton from the Nina Paper Company, and it just takes the ink beautifully.
Awesome. Niyati, for the sake of time, should we jump into the Q&A? I know that we're...
Let's go for it.
Let's do a quick Q&A / as long as needed. If anybody does need to, we won't be offended to see you guys drop off or anything. It's been a minute. So.
We're so glad to have you here, though.
We're grateful. If you have any other questions and you can't stay, just email us. You email or reach out on Instagram, whatever. You know the drill. Okay, we'll get to Q&A.
We're very excited to talk about it.
Thank you, for keeping us on track. Yes, Q&A. Thank you.
Awesome. So if you guys want to post your questions in the chat, I have one from a friend who just texted me, but if you guys could enter in your questions in the chat, I'll just read them out. The first question was, Eli, how did you name your studio? Every time we get an email for the Delta Art Book, we get a long, kind of like YYMMMHHH or whatever it is. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I think any studio that's run by an artist at some point reaches a moment when it needs a name more than you can not name it. And in that moment is when it crystallizes. And for some people, it's totally random. And for some people, it's the name of the street they were on. For me, my friend Genevieve Marsh always insisted when we were working together at this fountain company that I was addicted to time. I always wore a watch. I still often do. And she really challenged me on that and asked me to push back against that. And I struggled with that for about 6 or 7 years. And finally, during my thesis year, when I was thinking about how all of this came together, it just seemed like the perfect name for my studio. the 4 Ys, Y, year, month, date, hour, and minute. So the other advantage to this is in my computer science, computer engineering brain, that when you sort in a sort of alphabetical order, anything that is named using this convention, you will get it in the order of the time that it happened. Whereas if you put those in any other place, you'll end up with everything you did in January, regardless if you're grouped together or what have you. So it just, I still love it, and I think I feel lucky to have found it.
I would say that's a very Eli name. It's as efficient and perfect as Eli and her work. I love it. I did have the same question in the beginning, and you did explain it to me.
And you can always say YYYY but if you're not me and you're not practiced at it, I just call it YMDHM as a shorthand. And you've gotten very good at saying that out loud. Yeah, YMDHM.
YMDHM.
Thank you, Eli. So we have a question from Cody. He says, curious to hear about the number 25 and what significance it holds for the project.
25. Well, so originally we had a very long discussion about how many cards we should have.
Yeah.
It was a lot because I was writing all of it, and then Eli also had all her images, and so it was kind of like we were meeting in the middle.
Right. Right, because I told niyati, if so long as we stay under like 70 cards, my work will still be representative.
Yeah, and I was like, good Lord, can I ever write 70 cards in 2 months?
But I don't expect you to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, my first thought was like, should I just put a word on a card because that's, I don't know, nuance. And so I freaked out at one point. We had originally, I think we had a higher number we settled on 21.
We were gonna go with 21.
Yeah. And so we had 21 originally, and then I freaked out. I was like, I need less. And then Eli was like, okay, I can do 18. And then we went back up to 21 the more I wrote. And then the last 4 cards was one I added this zeitgeist protest card. So that was a way for me to not just add unnecessary words. And then we wanted to make sure we had our production as one of the cards.
Yep.
Our bio as one of the cards, and our that's the production. And then we have both of our bios on one side on one of them.
And our thanks.
Our acknowledgements, our thanks on another one. So in that sense, the actual content is 22.
What is contained between the fly leaves?
Yeah, what is contained between the fly leaves is 21 still.
21.
Because the one title card.
But the 25 worked really perfectly for your work because when you lay out the triangle with both the triangles that are upright and the ones that are pointing down, it creates a full triangle.
So Eli's is, okay, I'm not gonna
go for it.
No, it was more just like a distance thing.
Okay. Yeah, so niyati's work, as you can see here, contains all 25 cards in the...
So it goes like, some of them are upside down when you're reading it in the pile, but the orders are still there.
And then my work, when you leave out those 4 cards, the title, the acknowledgements, when you set those aside and look at them separately, my work creates this more sort of open triangle.
Yeah. And so it was like a lot of Delta, the intentions kind of came as necessity came, and vice versa. We figured out how to match all of the intentions we wanted in it. And again, a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
A little bit of luck.
Okay, I think
Thank you, Cody.
Okay, thanks for that question. I think we have time for one more question. So does anybody have anything for Eli or niyati?
It's okay.
It's fine. You guys are very thorough. Okay. Yu Ping, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, says, congratulations on making such a beautiful book. Wondering if there are plans for future iterations or editions and whether you would be open to push the materiality a bit more.
Thank you, Ray.
Ray. I've heard so much about you, Ray. Ray, you're pictured in Delta.
Yeah. Niyati hasn't met you yet, but still
one day.
Still knows you through all of these images.
Quite intimately.
And they clarified with, i.e. printed with bioplastic, something that deteriorates.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Should we invite Ray to our next collaboration? I'm down. I'll let you start.
Oh, I don't know. I see where you're coming from. Ray makes wonderful work right now, currently, with the Scooby that's left over from kombucha, and it does degrade.
That's incredible.
As I have gone through my 7-year battle with time and its existence, and answering Genevieve's question, I still find myself very attached to permanence and order. So I don't know. I think I'm really proud of how solid we've made this book, and that 4 years from now, when we have forgotten the immediacy of this time, that it will still exist.
Yeah, it's literally will last forever. I think for what this is, it matches very well, but for future projects, this is where me and Eli are the opposite of the same exact card. I am all for like chaos and naturalism and like things disintegrating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I love pushing Eli a little bit more in the same way that she grounds me a lot, in very necessary ways.
With questions like, do you really want to fold 70 of those?
Which is a valid question I didn't think about. So originally I was going to origami all these addendums into, I don't know, like boats.
Boats.
Boats. I was like, let's put let me fold my notes from the night before into boats, like 60 copies or like, for in case we mess them up. And so like, definitely useful collaboration. But I'm always interested in learning more about the materiality. For future editions, Eli and I had this discussion yesterday, actually.
This morning.
This morning. Good Lord, time is, what is it?
A joke.
A joke, a line, or a scam. That's one of the phrases I wrote into Delta.
One I love very much.
Tenets to understanding the human passing of time. That is a card that's in here and in my brain. So one of my favorite cards. I personally think that because we approach this with very intimate, Eli opened me up to being more revelatory about my intimate life, which I am a very private person. And in that sense, I was like, Eli, never again will we ever publish this in any other way. Because I don't want my work there. We both have our separate copyrights and stuff. She is free to share any of her work anywhere. But it is, anybody that reads it will understand why I don't want it reprinted. On the other hand, she did make a lot of good points this morning about, being able to change those 3 cards that I hold very dear into other things. So yeah, in terms of other editions.
That might be a good place for the degrading.
Yes, so we'll see. That was a wonderful question. I'm interested in including Ray in our next collaboration to see about her degrading material.
Sorry to interrupt, but I have additional questions. Where should they reach out to both of you guys to ask them?
I'm sorry, what?
If people have additional questions, where should they reach out?
Yes. So for me, you can always DM me on Instagram or email me. My website is niyati.inc. On the Eventbrite page where you all registered for this, all of our websites are there and our Instagrams. And then a very quick and easy way to reach both of us is deltaartbook@gmail.com. You can always just email that. We'll both get it. And then to reach Eli directly.
Email. If you're here and you're looking at me, you probably have my contact information. And if you know Niyati, she would be happy to pass it on to you.
Oh, I did. Sorry, this is silly me. Actually, in November, when I set up the deltaartbook.com site, I did email forwarding. So if you do Eli at deltaartbook.com, it forwards straight directly to Eli. And then
Genius.
niyati@deltaartbook.com will email me directly.
We'll put that in the chat.
Info will go to that basic Gmail. So yeah, we'll add that to the chat. Easier than our buried emails. Thank you guys for coming. We are so excited that this is almost done.
Yeah.
And that you guys can have it in your space. We plan to, we still have to figure out the processes for getting this book in a couple collections, but we're hoping to have it at the Center for Book Arts because they are responsible for our meeting. And we're very grateful
and they're based in New York
there.
And then I will be giving we will be giving a copy to the RISD library. They have a really wonderful special collections. So that I believe is accessible to the wider public as well as anyone who's at RISD or Brown or any of those institutions. So it'll be accessible and preserved there.
Yes. And of course, when anybody visits us,
we'll gladly share it.
Gladly. Okay. Thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, I want to give a big thanks to everyone on the West Coast who spent an afternoon with us. Everyone on the East Coast who spent their evening with us.
Their entire Saturday night.
And everyone in between and elsewhere. Thank you. And thank you again. I miss you all. And I'm so glad to meet those of you I don't yet know. Thank you.
And thank you to Onyinye and Kiran and Patty for reading. It's 1 a.m. in Lagos right now. So thank you for staying up. We love you guys. Feel free to sign off. We'll just be here watching you guys sign off, reading your chats. You guys are wonderful and you really help us survive and keep working. And we love you. And my scarf has turned into a shawl because there's an air mass. Bye. Bye, everyone.